All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Grizzly's Cave. This is Grizzly Andrew, and I hope everybody is doing good. Before I start, I do want to mention a few things. First of all, make sure that you set your clocks 1 hour forward. And folks, I don't know about you all, but that is one of the times of the year that I really dread is setting my clocks forward. Now, I really love it when we set our clocks an hour back, but it is what it is. Second thing, on my previous episode with Ben Johnson and his son Trevor Johnson. So I do want to apologize to the listeners. So that episode was actually over 4 hours. And then whenever I was working on getting it uploaded, it apparently only uploaded 3 hours. So if you're listening to it and it just cuts off and goes to another podcast or whatnot, I do want to apologize for that. I will be having them back on the show hopefully soon. We'll see what happens just based on our schedules and whatnot. But again, I do apologize. We will cover the stuff that was cut off for that last hour or so of the episode. And I'm sure we'll talk about more stuff as well. And speaking of Ben, I do want to plug the GoFundMe account. The account is Help Ben Build a Future for Indie Wrestling Stars. The link is gofund.me/9 B as in boy 2 F as in Frank C as in Charles 903. And folks, I've said this on other episodes. We've got to keep independent wrestling alive as long as we can. With this GoFundMe account, it is to establish a permanent training center for the current trainees and for future trainees. Any donations would be greatly appreciated. Also, we had a tremendous turnout for the Null Wrestling event tonight. I'm not sure how many fans we had, but from the start of the show till the end of the show, that crowd was very much alive. Those of you that came to the show and that listened to the podcast, thank you so much for coming to the show. We all greatly appreciate it. And it's because of you that we can keep this going. I believe the next show will be April the 5th at 7 p.m. If the dates change, I will update that on this podcast. So, uh, tonight's episode, I do not have a guest, so this one is just going to be a solo one. And the episode this is going to center on, this will be about the third live wrestling event that I went to. Now, if you've listened to my previous episodes, I talked about when I went to one for the WWF back in 95. And then on another episode, I talked about when I went to the very last Clash of the Champions for WCW back in 97. So we're going to fast forward to April of 1998. So my stepdad, who I hold in high regard to this day, he told me that he was going to take me to another wrestling show. And I said, okay. And I was really excited and stuff. Well, I knew something was up because we didn't have to drive a long distance. It was actually in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and it was at the National Guard Armory. Now, I've lived in Hopkinsville at this point for almost a year and driven past it, but never. I take that back. I have been in there like one other time. A church I went to, they had like a trunk or treat kind of thing on Halloween back in 97. So this was actually my second time in the National Guard Armory. And he told me, and I'm going to try to imitate him as best as I can. No, Andrew, this ain't going to be WWF or WCW. And I'm thinking, okay. So this was actually my very first independent wrestling show that I had went to. And I'm not sure what promotion was holding it. I'm wanting to say they might have been an affiliate with the NWA or something. So we get there, and it was on a Friday night. I think we got there about 6 o'clock, maybe 6:30, give or take. And we're standing in line, and my stepdad, if you, well, he's very well known in Hopkinsville. He is a self-employed handyman. I mean, he paints, does roofs, uh, did some pressure washing, replaced toilets. I mean, you pretty much anything that needed to be done, this man can do. Well, he saw some people that he knew, and one thing about my stepdad, once you start a conversation with him, you're going to be talking for at least 30 to 45 minutes, and that's the minimum. Well, anyways, um, we finally get inside, and I see a guy by the name of Sir Mo. And for those of you that followed WWF back in the early to mid 90s, Sir Mo was part of a tag team called Men on a Mission. And his partner was the late Nelson Frazier, but at that time he was Mabel when those two were a tag team together. Well, I'm a stupid 12-year-old kid and I don't know any better. And when I see him taking the money for the tickets and whatnot, I say, "Well, where's King Mabel at?" And again, I'm a stupid 12-year-old kid. I don't know any better. Well, he didn't say anything. He just smiled big and just laughed. I'm thinking maybe King Mabel may show up at the show. I'll go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. He did not show up. I don't even think he was booked or anything like that. Well, anyways, when you walk in the National Guard Armory, there's a little hallway or fellowship area or whatever you want to, whatever, however you want to say it. And there's these two wooden double doors, and the door opens, and out pops Ricky Morton from the Rock and Roll Express. And again, me being a stupid 12-year-old kid, and I had just seen him on an episode of Monday Night Raw, just 4 nights prior, and I said, "I saw you on TV," and stuff like that. He kind of stared at me for a second, but then nothing after that. So then we get inside, then we're waiting in line before they actually open the doors inside the building so we can go take our seats. And of course, I'm having to listen to my stepdad have a conversation with these folks even longer. And again, I'm a 12-year-old kid. I'm starting to get restless. I'm wanting to get inside because I want to go watch the show. And finally, we go in, and see the chairs. Give me just a second. Sorry about that. Anyways, the chairs are set. The ring's set up. There were some merch tables, and let's see. Then all of a sudden, the Rock and Roll Express had a table and where you could get pictures taken, and I had the luxury of getting a picture taken with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, and it was a Polaroid photo. They signed it and everything, and I mean it was incredible. I mean that is a legendary tag team, and be able to take a picture with them, that was just an experience that's just kind of hard to describe. Well, right before we go take our seats, there's a fellow that I recognize, and he's talking with me and my stepdad, and I kept thinking the name PG-13, the tag team, and they had worked for Vince previously. Well, it was just one of them, and the only name I could think of was Wolfie D. And I said, "You're Wolfie D, right?" And then he said, "Nope, JC." He said, "JC Ice, but close enough." And then I said, "Used to sing with the Nation of Domination." He said, "Yes, sir." Yes, sir. Nation of Domination. He might not have said. I don't think he might not have said "sir" to me. That's just a natural. Um, that's just a natural response for me to say. But he did say that he used to sing with the Nation of Domination, and I'm not really sure what else was mentioned in the conversation. But we eventually went to our seats, and let me think. Give me just a second, folks. It's been a while since I remember this show, but um, opening match started up, and there was a guy that at first, when you saw him, the gear that he was wearing was very similar to what Jerry the King Lawler wore. You know, the single strap singlet. His pants had crowns on them and everything. There was a then I cannot remember the name of his opponent, but it was a really good opening match. Um, Fast forward. Sorry, I'm already picturing this in my mind, but there was a fellow that came out to Master P's song, "Make 'Em Say na 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 na," and this guy's name was Hot Chocolate, and he gets in the ring and he gets the microphone and he's getting the crowd worked up. I'd say we might probably had 100 people or so. He's getting the crowd worked up, and he keeps calling out certain people in the crowd. Uh, there was one woman. He said some insults to her, and she turned away, had her hand up in the air, said, "No, no, don't talk to me," and she might have said some other things. And then he got out of the ring, and oh boy, he starts antagonizing an elderly woman. And folks, when I say elderly, I mean she had to have at least been in her 60s, maybe 70s. Well, she gets up out of her chair, and I mean she gets up slowly out of that chair. And she's walking really slow towards him. He's walking backwards or backpedaling. And keep in mind she's holding an infant in her left arm as well. And he's going on and on. She slowly raises up her right hand and just slips him the bird. Slipped him the bird a bunch of times and everything. Come to think of it, I don't even know if there was any security at this show. I don't remember seeing any, but there might have been. I just don't remember anybody getting in between those two. But yeah, she held her right hand up and was shaking it and flipping the bird and all that other stuff. She finally went back down to her seat. Well, Hot Chocolate's opponent was none other than the legendary Barry Windham. And folks, I'm gonna tell you, I mean, he's big. He's big on TV. He's much bigger in person. I mean, he looked. I mean, as a 12-year-old kid, I'm not even 5 foot. I mean, he looked like a giant. And they had a good match. I do remember Barry Windham winning that match, and I think Hot Chocolate got the microphone again and started tearing into the crowd some more, and that elderly lady wound up flipping him off some more. But Hot Chocolate, he could definitely work the crowd and did a dang good job of it. There was a women's wrestling match, and one of them, her name was the Harley Honey, and I cannot remember who her opponent was, but the Harley Honey came out, had her wrestling tights on, had a Harley Davidson T-shirt, and I ain't gonna lie, folks, she was hot. She had a manager, and this woman uh, had a had a pantsuit on. Basically, I mean, she looked like someone that worked for a big corporation, or would have been, or might have been a lawyer or something like that. And it was a good match. The crowd was really tearing into Harley Honey's opponent. Uh, really got her worked up, but then she worked the crowd as well. And one of the memorable things about that match was they both and I believe the manager wound up beating up the referee. I think he had made a bad call or something like that, and he wound up getting beat up by those three women. So that made it very entertaining. Um, believe the next match it was a tag team match between the Rock and Roll Express and Robert Gibson came out, gave me a high five, and I was like, oh my gosh! I'm like, this is I mean, how many people can say that, hey, you got your picture taken with the Rock and Roll Express, and then not only that, but then have Robert Gibson come out and give you a high five? I mean, that that I mean, I was starstruck basically. Well, then the music of their opponents plays, and folks, these guys were monsters. Oh my God, these guys were freaking huge. It was the Pit Bulls, and I know they had a run in, I believe they had a run in ECW. I cannot remember the time frame, but these guys were monsters. I mean, they had to have been 275, 280, and these were these jacked up looking guys, and it was a good match. The ending of the match came when a couple of independent wrestlers came out and interfered and cost cost the Pit Bulls the match. And ironically, those two independent wrestlers wound up having a match against each other, and it was a hardcore match, and it was yeah, I mean, it was brutal. And then the Pit Bulls wound up getting their revenge on these guys. They beat them up pretty badly, and I believe, I cannot remember which one's Pitbull one and Pitbull two. One was bald headed, the other had long black hair. And if you look at him, he kind of resembles Rhino a little bit. For those of you who know who Rhino is, and I remember one of the guys got power bombed, and the other guy was beat up, thrown outside, and everything. They were just left laying. And I remember getting up out of my chair as the pit bulls were walking to the back and got my hands up and got high fives from them as well. I actually did get my picture taken with the pit bulls as well. And yeah, these guys were incredible. And do not know what happened to that Polaroid, but I tried to look tough in the picture and did try to do a Hulk Hogan's most muscular pose, even though I'm like 100 pounds soaking wet and have buggy whipped arms and all that other stuff. But hell, it was a blast. The fact that these guys, were willing to have, get pictures taken with the fans, and they didn't have to do that, but they did. And that definitely means a lot to a fan like myself. Um, then there was another match. There was a guy that I believe he went by the name of the Punisher, and I mean, this guy could have passed off as if he was Kane or the Undertaker because he was so tall and he was a big fella. And I cannot remember who he worked, but again, that was a great match. The Punisher wound up winning that one, and then the main event had a JC Ice, and the guy that he had the name Taz, but it wasn't. But it's not the Taz that's been in ECW, WWE, TNA, and AEW. Wasn't this Taz? It was somebody else, and it was a really good match. The Taz fellow wound up winning, and I think we were there for probably 2.5, 3 hours. And after the match ended, Me and a couple other kids, we rolled into the ring and stuff. I started to climb up the ropes and all that, and I heard somebody yell, "Get off the ropes! Get out of the ring!" So got off the ropes, got out of the ring, and me and my stepdad we wound up leaving. But I mean, it was just an incredible experience. I mean, that was my first ever independent show that I had went to, and I actually did not go to another independent wrestling match until June of last year, whenever I went to my first ever NAW promotion. And for those of you that don't know, NAW stands for New Age Wrestling Entertainment. And then and we were off to the races after that. I mean, folks, I say this again: independent wrestling. We've got to keep it alive. We got to keep it up and running for as long as we can, so it gives people that are breaking into this business places to work, places to learn, train, hone their craft, etc. I really wish I could. I really wish I knew what happened to those Polaroid pictures because I mean I had them for a long time and I don't know if they got actually accidentally thrown away or something. But anyways, but yeah, folks, that was my very first independent wrestling show. And folks, if you haven't had the chance, go check out your local independent wrestling promotions. The tickets are not expensive, and all of these guys and girls that are out there performing, I mean, they do it because they love this business and they want to be a part of this business for as long as they can. And folks, we can't do it without y'all. No, I'm not a wrestler. I'm just a commentator, and now I'm a manager. But no, I'm not a wrestler. But I am a part of this promotion, and I love this promotion. And it's been an incredible experience, and I'm going to do this for as long as I can. And you folks that come and buy the tickets to come see the show, and you know, support your local independent wrestling. Please, please do that. But anyways, folks, that's about all I have on this episode. But before I go, I did get some more compliments from some folks that have been listening to these episodes and have subscribed and everything else. And to all of my listeners, it really means a lot to me. Actually, it means the world to me that you are listening to this podcast and supporting it. And I'm going to keep this going for as long as I can. So, to my listeners out there, my followers, thank you all so much. You all mean a great deal to me. And again, I want to plug this GoFundMe account. It is Help Ben Build a Future for Indie Wrestling Stars, and the link is gofund.me/9B as in boy, 2 F as in Frank, C as in Charles, 903. And I'll say it again. I know you all get tired of hearing me say it, but we've got to keep independent wrestling going for as long as we can. And, if we can get a permanent training facility up in Hopkins County, then we can get our current trainees ready for whenever they make their debuts, as well as have a facility for future trainees that want to break into the business. And I also want to plug the next NAW wrestling event. As of now, it will be Saturday, April the 5th at 7 p.m. The doors will open between 6 and 6:30. Ticket prices are as follows: ages 0 to 5 get in free, ages 6 to 12 $5, and then anybody 13 and older, it'll be $8, and concessions are available. It is a family friendly promotion, and I promise you will not be disappointed. And we really hope that you can make it to the next show. All right, well, folks, this is Grizzly Andrew signing off. Thank you again for listening. Take care, and God bless.